Hello, welcome everyone to the Movement Made Better podcast. Today's guest is a very good friend of ours, Justin Kerley, living out in Boulder, Colorado. Fort Collins, Colorado. Sorry, my bad, bro. Fort Collins, bro. So Justin, go ahead and give a little introduction on yourself, brother.
You guys know it for the most part, but I guess everyone listening doesn't. But yeah, so I met you guys 15 years ago almost now, which is wild. And I was like every other little meathead that thought you could be a personal trainer. And I say like almost a wannabe meathead at the time, because when we guys really started hanging out, Dennis and I were both renting space at a raised built tough gym. I was like, yeah, I'm going to squat this 405. And I got to maybe like an eighth of the way, and the bar rolled over my head into the squat rack. And I went, oh man, I don't know what I'm doing as a trainer. And I was probably like 19, 20 years old. Dennis kind of took me on, him and then Mitch Taylor at the time kind of took me under the wing. And then I met Neil beyond the point. So that's how I got into fitness, really. That's how I was a personal trainer at 24 Hour Fitness. I met Dennis there originally. We both rented space from Raised Built Tough Gym. I exposed myself by not knowing how to be able to squat. Dennis and I became buddies, and then who I met Neil through. But then simultaneously, and then I like to think that actually as like a grace, because I think you guys helped evolve my fitness, like my look towards it, and my outlook towards it. I was the guy who would read Arnold's Encyclopedia of Modern Bodybuilding and Muscle and Fitness magazines and put together workouts, no matter what your goals were, right? Like, all right, cool. So as far as like how I got into the industry, that's kind of the recap there. And then also simultaneously, I was in the independent circuit, quote unquote, of pro wrestling. So I was what we call, I guess, more of a jobber in the WWE world, right? Like WWE would come into town, they would need someone to get beat up pretty much, and they would call me. But then, that was the ultimate goal, was to work for them full time. So simultaneously, I was doing the independent circuits and making my way up, my name known through that, which was another thing. I was 20 years old, I think, and my body was already starting to bug. And so between not knowing how to be able to squat and being in the ring all the time, that's when I quickly realized, okay, I need to make some sort of transition here away from, for the lack of a better term, meathead lifting, to being able to at least touch my toes and squat properly and etc. From there, I like to think I evolved. You guys and I would go on many road trips down in Southern California, perform better seminars, whatever we could find, Indian club seminars, idea seminars, and really just started throwing ideas around. That's when Neil and I came up with the like stupid strong. We started to kind of fun here. We started bullshitting a little bit about stupid strong, and then we bullshit about like, it'd be scary, a gorilla that's a ninja, and like, et cetera, et cetera. And so that led into just, that stayed dormant for years. And then 2014, moved out to Colorado, Fort Collins, Colorado, from San Jose, where we were training together. My wife and I decided, we want to open a gym out here. So almost 3 years ago now, we opened a gym, and all that stuff came back to fruition. And Get Stupid Strong and Ninja Gorilla Baby are our two like hashtags everyone uses right now. That's kind of where I'm at as far as in the fitness world. That's kind of how I got going. I started off like everybody else, wanted to be a personal trainer because it looked like a fun job. I was also simultaneously doing pro wrestling. Met you guys, and like to think I kind of evolved from there until eventually being able to open my own studio out here in Colorado.
Very nice. You've done a shitload already in your life.
Yeah, not already. I'm not that young anymore, man. Got more to do, hopefully.
As far as the wrestling is concerned, how did your workouts change as far as when your perspective changed?
I would say I was very aesthetic based, which I think you have to be in pro wrestling, right? You got to look the part, but you also got to be able to move, right? And so I was very aesthetic based, very like classic, I'm going to do back and biceps, chest day and arm day, leg day, et cetera, et cetera. And I would almost beat myself to an oblivion to where I couldn't really, the old saying like, oh, I'm so sore, I must have had a great workout. But then I couldn't perform. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't touch my toes like I mentioned. I could, So then I realized, okay, there's more to being strong than just being strong, right? There's strength is relative term. So then I would say I evolved to, end range control stuff before I knew what end range control was, right? You guys were introducing me to that and working on mobility, flexibility, started playing around with more, I guess, conditioning and strength put together rather than just walking on a treadmill as my cardio. You know what I mean? Got introduced. Neil introduced me to paddle and kettlebells in general, pretty much, and Dan John. So I really started following a lot of what they had to say and looking into that. Fell in love with kettlebells for a long time. Still in love with them, but I felt I could build an aesthetic base while also building an athletic performance base. Right, has always been the goal. I think I just kind of evolved as far as I need to focus on building a base, a foundation, and then all the aesthetic stuff is just the toppings, right? It goes on top. I started learning more about programming properly, and how to work out without using machines for the most part, open chain movements as opposed to closed chain, and really fell down that rabbit hole, for the lack of a better term, which transitioned great into the ring because I was quicker, I was more agile, my bumps or my faults, however you want to look at it, were becoming better. I was getting higher on my hip tosses. Just little things that started to expose themselves very quickly in the beneficial way. So I stuck with it and learned how to deadlift and squat properly, learned how to swing some kettlebells and snatch some kettlebells. Then that led into, I think, rather than thinking of, okay, I got to do a chest day, a back day, an arm day, and a leg day, etc., thinking of the body as one unit. Right. And thinking, okay, well, what do? We squat, hinge, push, pull, we rotate, anti-rotate, and then have a gait motion, right? So start falling in love with carries and heavier, like different sled drags, working in transverse planes of motion a lot more rather than just being front and back, sagittal, bench press, incline press, decline press, chest fly, dip, right? Start working in that transverse plane and being able to rotate, like you always say, Dennis, power lives in rotation, right? And started, wrestling, don't get me wrong, it's a show to suspend disbelief, but you got to be able to move. You got to be able to base and support yourself and other people, right? And so I found quick benefit in just building the foundation before putting the house up, pretty much, right? Putting the cart, what does my mom say? Putting the horse before the cart.
Yeah. Well, how many hours, as far as practice in the ring, how many hours would you be putting in, let's say, on a weekly basis?
So I went to APW in Hayward, California, All Pro Wrestling. They do a 6-month program, and it's, they have the beginner's class, intermediate class, semi-pro, and then make your debut, and then you're still supposed to go to the semi-pro classes, etc. Right? So when I first got started, I wrestled in high school, played football for 7 years and wrestled for 4. Got out of high school and realized I didn't want to do either of those things anymore. And so my girlfriend at the time was like, dude, you won't shut up about WWF. Just go call this dude, right? And I found them via documentary Beyond the Mat. Anyways, went there and realized, like, okay, I'm in better shape than a lot of these guys. I could do this, right? So then between that, having somewhat of athletic ability from wrestling, I picked stuff up pretty quickly, right? And then when I started kind of transitioning my training style, I picked stuff up even quicker. So I did the beginner's class, which was 2 days a week. And then I would do Saturdays, which was an open mat. And then they invited me like, hey, man, we can speed up this process. You can do the semi-pro or the intermediate class. The intermediate class with the beginner's class simultaneously if you can make it Monday through Thursday. So I started going Monday through Thursday, and they were about 3-hour practices, about 12 hours. And then sometimes Saturday or Sunday, we'd go do open mat stuff for another couple hours. So 12 to 15 hours in a week. As I made my debut and I started getting promoted more, making my way through the circuits, up in California and wherever it would be, I would say I started cutting back on the beginner's class. You never have too much fundamentals, so I always tried to go, but I cut back on those, and then so probably cut down to maybe 6 to 8 hours a week at that time. Further down the road, I ended up becoming a instructor, a coach for Pro Wrestling Revolution out of San Jose. I still practice, but I stopped. I started leading the practice and started practicing myself less, but I mean, they intertwine, right? They're almost one and the same. And that was 3 days a week for 2-3 hours. So 6 to 8 hours probably.
And then how much time in the gym were you training?
Back when I had the time, I would do an hour and a half, 2 hours probably, but I would fall in love with something, right? I'd be like, oh my God, foam rolling. And I would foam roll for an hour and then go lift for an hour. I had the time. I had nothing else to do. You know what I mean? So like, oh my God, kettlebells. I'm just going to practice these for an hour. Okay, cool. Now I'm going to go actually lift. You know what I mean? Like, so I was putting in probably an hour and a half, 2 hours at the time, 4 or 5 times a week. But again, like that, a lot of that time was spent on either recovery or starting to learn about mobility, et cetera.
Did a lot of those aches and pains that you were feeling when you were 20, you know, doing more of the bodybuilding style training go away?
Definitely. I mean, with any sport, right, especially contact sports, you have your contact injuries and whatnot, you know, your bumps and bruises, but I'm able to rebound from you twist an ankle or something. As long as I feel like if you're strong in that range of motion, like Dennis, I think you just went through this, you're strong in that range of motion, you're going to come back a little quicker, right? So the contact injuries were there, but I would say my shoulders didn't hurt for no reason, you know, just because I couldn't reach behind my back. You know, my shoulders didn't hurt for no reason. My hips weren't bugging me from just running the ropes, you know, or trying to go a lateral cut wrong way or something like that. So yeah, I guess long, short story, boring. Yes, they did start going away. And then, and I still try to train in this same manner. And I don't wrestle anymore, but I've taken up the art of jiu-jitsu, I guess, for the last 4.5 years, 5 years almost now, which is crazy.
What belt are you now?
I'm only a blue belt. I probably took about the last 11 months off because of the pandemic, and then because we had a baby. It was last February 26th. He's gonna be 1 year old in 3 weeks.
Hey.
So between the baby and the pandemic, took some time off. I've been getting back on the mat about the last month, but same thing, man. Now I'll spend more time. I'll still do my primary lifts. You know, I still building the base, but now I see even more function to the end range control stuff. Like, you know, getting Kimura on my right side is a lot easier than on my left side. Like, well, why is that? Because my rotation of the shoulder sucks. So I start working on that stuff, and all of a sudden I'm like, okay, like I shouldn't be in this position, but I'm not tapping yet. You know? So, maybe I got to work on my skill a little bit more so I don't end up there. But yeah, definitely seen the benefit in jiu-jitsu for sure.
You just whisper in the person's ear, you're like, I still got more range, man.
Yeah. I'm just gonna flex out of this. That didn't work.
But there's so much strength factor to that ground-based application.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that's what I think people kind of overlook that too much.
I agree. It's meant, it's a sport meant to use size against you.
Mm-hmm.
But if you get a powerful dude who's just as skilled, it always helps, right? And now if you start building, like we were talking about earlier, would the Hulk be stronger if he trained mobility?
It's a legit question. It's a legit question.
It's a legit question.
It's a totally legit question.
You start training mobility and end range control and movement in awkward, putting your joints in awkward, being safe, but putting them in weird force building scenarios. And all of a sudden you're like, yeah, this ground game, Turkish get-ups, all that, like all that stuff on the floor. I saw you were you doing shrimps with the band on you the other day on Instagram, something like that.
Oh, and I had the strap, the Serape strap. So I was doing just the roll pattern out of it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah,
just like kind of the starting point of the Turkish get up, just getting that roll pattern. But I love the straps for that ground-based style work. It's interesting to see how many trainers aren't comfortable, or actually I should say a lot of clients aren't comfortable being on the floor and moving around on the floor. There's
almost clients to where I'm trying to program, like, all right, let's just do all our floor-based stuff now. So I don't have to, eventually the goal is to be able to make, feel the human better, right? You should be able to get up and down off the floor, hopefully forever, right? But there's certain clients that are almost like, I'm going to program all the floor work now until we're strong enough to be able to get up and down and up and down. It's crazy. But yes, going back to where you were, it's crazy how many people are uncomfortable on the floor. My wife gives me shit all the time because I sit on the floor and watch TV. She's like, dude, we have this giant couch. I'm like, yeah, but the floor.
Well, what is it? Well, the book Exercise by Daniel Lieberman, he talks about when they were observing the tribe.
Yeah, like how we were actually evolved to sit. Yeah. Just not in chairs.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it was interesting because he says that he observed over 100 different postures just watching people on the floor and where they continuously started to change positions because their body just went, okay, I've been in this posture too long. adapt.
And they would never
change.
sit longer than 12 minutes at a time or something like that.
Yeah, it was pretty short. Yeah, we like our Lazy Boys recliners. Yeah, we just like
like this one right here.
Yeah, this one's pretty comfy. Like I do.
It looks
Perfectly contours to your spine. Dude. I'm just my lower back's completely tucked right now, but it's super comfortable.
Until it's time to stand up.
Yeah. And then you're like, oh, son of a bitch. You're like, damn. Well, it's like we say, the bad posture is the one you spend too much time in.
It was Andre Spina, I think, taught me that originally.
Right? Yeah.
Unless you're going to stop being a computer programmer, right? Like, you got to figure out how to change. You can't stay there 40 hours a week.
Right? Yeah. What's interesting, too, is with a lot of the general population, just sitting on the floor with their legs out in front of them, like in an L sit, is super challenging for way too many people.
You ask them to lift one leg up and watch what really happens, right? Like,
oh my God.
I love that position, that L sit position, right? Like to expose people, I should say. I expose myself like this, or like someone comes to the gym, like big guy, big buff, strong, and they're strong. Don't get me wrong, they're super strong. But then you have them sit tall and then just lift one leg off the floor. And you're just like, oh, cramp. Right? Yeah.
Or that ability to sit in that L position and breathe and just hold it for any sustainable amount of time, even if it's just for 30 seconds to a minute. It's pretty challenging for a lot of unskilled, unconditioned people.
Yeah. You ever try to get on the floor and copy the positions that your son can get into?
Oh, yeah, sometimes. Yeah, it's wild, dude. Like, he just drops into a 90-90, no problem. Like, stands up from there. Like, oh, shit, can I do that? Like, of course I can. I'm an athlete. It just takes a few reps. Right?
You're like, give me a minute. Hold on, son. I'll be right there in just a second.
I can only do my left side.
He's starting to walk now too, man. It's chaos, dude. That I'm definitely better at walking than he is, for sure. That part I got down.
Well, that's good. Good.
He looks like a little drunk human.
You moving out to Fort Collins, I mean, that was a huge event. I mean, as far as, when you living here in California, I mean, that was a big
thing. Scary move. It's a scary thing for sure.
Yeah.
Especially as you built up a business here in San Jose, and then there wasn't really any online training, or there was, but we haven't.
It was a thing, but
no one was really taking advantage of it. Yeah,
it was really scary, right? So, like I was saying, I started at 24-Hour Fitness, stayed maybe a year there, and then started renting space. We all went to Raise Built Tough gym originally, then we migrated to NorCal Functional Fitness. And over that, it's probably over 9 years or something, right? Of building clientele and a reputation, et cetera. And it was just one of those moves where my wife and I were like, dude, want to get out of here? And I wanted to go back to school at the time. My first time around at school, when I was trying to be a pro wrestler, my GPA was not very good. And so I only got into a few schools and a few programs. Luckily, I was old. I was almost 30, so I was an adult learner, they call it. So that helped my case. Like on Colorado State, I had known about Fort Collins for a while. I had a good friend that lived out here for work and come out here and just to hang out and party, really, and go to the breweries. But I knew I liked it. It's a fun place. I knew economically it was a better move, right? Moving from the Bay Area to Fort Collins. And then so Colorado State was located here. I got accepted there. So my wife and I were like, dude, we're doing this. So we moved out here. We bought a home. I tried to give my clients who I thought would be the best trainers for them, right? And, you build relationships with these people. It's sad to leave, but you also got to do what's best for you, or what you hope is best for you at least, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
Came out here, and then I played the game of like, okay, I'm going to build a client base. So I got a job at a local gym. It's the Raintree Athletic Club. It's a bigger gym, but it's still local. So it's not a chain. It was a good atmosphere. The people are great there. And I was like, I'm going to stay here and build some client base. And then eventually I would like to head out and rent space again. And then I'm like, wow, there's really no space here to rent. And then next thing I know, almost 4 years have passed. I'm still working there when I only wanted to be there a year or two. 3-4 years passed. Couldn't find anywhere to rent space. So my wife and I went, hey man, you've been talking about opening a gym for as long as I've known you. Let's do it. So we pulled the trigger, and it's been great. It's been scary, especially with COVID, but we did it. We opened November of 2018. We started kind of getting everything ready around March, and then dummy over here thought I was going to play general contractor myself, do all the renovations. He said, no, bro. So then I had to wait 9 weeks for my permit. And so it was a lot of user error on my part. We're sitting on our hands. But November 2018, we opened up. Luckily, got past our first year. And then last March, we had our baby last February 26th, March 7th. We got shut down for about 7 weeks. And now we've been reopened, though, since early June. And then, here we are, man. It's been an evolution. It's been a roller coaster of a ride for sure, but it's been fun, man. I'm very lucky to be in a situation that I have the support system of my wife, and she's all on board with it, right? And very lucky that the pandemic hit in my second year, not my first year of being open. I definitely took a blow, but at least we had established ourselves a little bit by the time.
Have you been able to build back to about the same level
we're
prior to the pandemic?
We're trying to explore different avenues of income, right? My original goal was so where I train jiu-jitsu at, there's mixed martial arts, right? So they do jiu-jitsu, they do kickboxing, they do, then they have their TRX classes, and they do grappling, etc. And I pay one flat fee, and yoga studios can be the same. We have hot yoga, and I don't do a lot of yoga, but other types of yoga. I always thought in my head, I don't understand why someone doesn't do this with a strength and conditioning and mobility facility, right? In my opinion, the Holy Trinity, right? We'll teach kettlebell classes, we'll teach strength classes, we'll teach mobility classes, and etc. So that's still our game plan, but also we're starting to now, because we technically opened as a personal service when we reopened in late May, we've kind of seen some benefit to that. So we've kind of also started transitioning to be more of that personal training studio, right? We're renting space out to trainers a little more. We're focusing on one-on-one clients a little more than we're still focusing on our classes and everything. We love it's fun. We love that. But again, to make a short story boring, yes, we're getting back to where we were. We just had to kind of evolve our avenues to get there, pretty much, right?
With you making the jump of moving, which is a really big thing that I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with, did that and the success that you had moving and opening up the gym, does it give you more confidence to be able to take risks that a lot of other people wouldn't do?
Yeah, I'd say yeah. I've always been the guy of you got to try, right? If you don't try, you'll never know, right? Which is an old cliche, but it's obviously true, right? You'll never know, and failure builds strength, right? I'm really exposing my true colors with all my nerds talking about the Hulk earlier, but like Alfred tells Bruce, right? Why do we fall, Master Bruce? Right?
Right.
Back up. So, but yeah, you got to. In that, I think you also got to get your wins, right? Otherwise, you just get kicked forever, and it does take a toll. And so, yeah, I think I wouldn't say we're there successful yet with the gym yet, but yes, it gave being successful in the move and it working out well for us and being able to buy a home out here, et cetera, led to the overarching of let's try it. The overarching confidence of let's try this gym, right? And if the gym's successful, we have ideas of where we want to try to go to next. Whether it's another hard location or online or mobile or whatever, we're floating ideas. But again, it kind of comes with the confidence of being successful. Yeah, it's been all right, but it's been fun.
Well, I know we're coming up on a year of dealing with the pandemic. I mean, what have we seen, or what have we observed overall as an industry? What are there things that we've kind of noticed or trends that we've seen?
Yeah, I mean, I think you're seeing that the trend that people love Pelotons. They're super successful right now. Like I was saying, we're a strength conditioning mobility facility. Strength probably forefront. We kind of run off of a modified Wendler's 5-3-1 programming, right? So at the end of the day, our goal is to teach people to be comfortable squatting, pushing, pulling, and hinging stuff, right? In a perfect world, we would, in my classes at least, in a perfect world, we use a barbell, but we're not afraid to use safety squat bars, trap bars. If someone's not comfortable yet, we'll use kettlebells, etc. So that being said, it takes a lot of and then we'll use everything we need. But that being said, it takes a lot of equipment and to build that. So for me personally, I've had to see adaptations of, getting more body weight, strength-based movements or less equipment, right? We were talking about the straps you were using for your ground game earlier, stuff like that. Those are great. Bands. So just going back to kind of I talked about earlier with training for wrestling, but you can never have too much of the fundamentals. So it really made me go back and start refocusing on fundamentals that I have kind of not forgotten about, but kind of put in the back burner. And then, like everyone else, trying to evolve with technology, right? I think the online game is a game changer right now, and I'm not great at it and I need to be better, but we did our thing while we were shut down, trying to evolve. And I'm watching like my buddy out where you guys are at in San Jose, and one of my best friends out there runs HIT School, and it's a great business, but he goes to campuses, Google and Netflix, and no one's on campus.
Yeah.
No one's working out, right? So now, I think he did out of the whole pandemic, from what I've seen personally, next to Peloton, maybe did a really good job of evolving with the changes in the industry, right? Of people being scared of contact. I'm a very hands-on trainer, right? I'm very push your hips back, flat, long spine, I'm very hands-on, compact the shoulder. Now I'm like with a 6-foot mobility stick, like, all right, shoulders back, but I'm sure you guys have seen the same or something towards it, or maybe even different stuff, but it's a game changing for sure.
I think this has really brought about an attention to understanding where to spend money. Are you going to invest? You throw $70,000 worth into like 6 big pieces of equipment, and now you're sitting back going, "Jesus, I could have spent that $70,000 on and gotten way more out of it." Right?
Your whole gym almost, right?
Yeah.
I mean, depending on what you need, but yeah, you could,
because you don't have any big pieces of equipment other than the finisher. That's the only thing that you.
Yeah, we got the finisher, like the finisher flip sled. We have 2 of those, and then assault bikes from Rogue, and some rowers. We would love to get a Versa climber in the future as well, and maybe or Jacob's ladder, either or. But yeah, like that, we're probably our priciest piece of equipment. Other than that, a shitload of kettlebells, barbells, sticks, med balls. We got our sleds. Obviously, people love their sleds. Battle ropes.
Did you find that's one of the most surprising costs when you opened up your facility was actually flooring?
For sure. Between the rubber flooring and the turf, like both were stupid expensive, right?
Yeah, surprisingly. Yeah. That's one of the things when I first opened up my first facility years ago, I was like, holy shit, this flooring thing is no joke. I was like, damn.
It came quick.
I was like, oh my God. Were there any other surprise things when you opened up your facility that you weren't expecting cost-wise for people that are thinking about opening up a place?
Flooring was the biggest one, but hands down. I would say just overall, like it's not so much specific to gyms, but overall renovations kind of surprised me, right? Of just what we call, like what they call a tenant.
Yeah, tenant improvements.
Finish, I believe. Tenant improvement. It's like anything, right? You want to redo my kitchen for $10,000? Okay, yeah, sure. And then next thing you know, 30, 40 grand, right? Like,
right?
Yeah, all like same thing here. Like, we didn't think about that or this. So that, I think, caught me off guard. And then just some of like the smaller stuff, to be honest, like the paper towels, the soaps, the toilet papers, especially when the pandemic hit, like all that stuff. It just adds up. I thought I had it figured out, not realizing how much I'm actually going to use, right? So it's not a crazy amount, but it's just a monthly expense I underestimated for sure. So
what about time?
Oh, easily, hands down, yeah. Time goes, yeah. Especially when we first started, it was just us, Jen and I, right? It was just you're there all the time. Luckily, we put showers in our place because there's a lot of just hanging there and like lifting in the shower, and then there's always something to do, right? Whether it's computer work or paperwork or cleaning or coaching or training or marketing. Like marketing's huge. That kind of, I guess, would go on those monthly expenses, right? My wife, luckily, worked in marketing, so she shed light to that, but I didn't realize how much, domains and websites, and maintenance, designers, and everything else were going to cost us. But we got a good network because she worked in marketing and she had an idea, and so very happy with all that. But just, little things like that, I think, add up that you don't expect to. But as far as like one piece of equipment, not really, other than the flooring. To be fair, Versa climbers are much more expensive than I thought they were going to be.
Yeah, they're expensive.
They're not cheap.
They're like $5,000.
Yeah. It's always kind of surprising to me how expensive some of this stuff really is.
It's a great piece of equipment. But.
Oh, it's a great piece of equipment. Yeah. But you kind of, when you know the prices on them, and then you walk into a facility and you're like, holy shit, you got like 8 of those things. You're like, damn, you spent a chunk of money on that stuff, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah,
you walk in, right?
It is. Especially like you walk into a facility like Lifetime Fitness.
Yeah.
And, and they bring in a woodway and you're like, you got 8 of those things? You're like, holy jumping.
That's how much I outfitted my gym for. Yeah.
Like everything in my gym didn't even cost.
Right.
That, right.
Also crazy. Like sprint treadmills are cool, but they're crazy expensive too.
Yeah.
You ever see those kinesis machines?
Oh yeah. Those are cool.
A client of mine was like, "Hey, is there anything else you think I should put in my garage gym?" I'm like, "Yeah, you should go pick up one of these kinesis for your house real quick." So he looked up the price. He's like, $16,000. Holy shit!
Didn't Courtside have a bunch of those?
Well, we got AVAC right down the street from my wife and our house, and they have. That's the only place I've used the kinesis. Cool. I walked in, I was like, "Oh, you guys got one of these?" I was like, "Ching!" I was like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Okay." So I went there just to use that in the pool.
Yeah,
I was like, "It's worth it."
That.
Yeah, it saves me $16,000 of having to put that in my gym. I'm like, hell yeah, I'll use that for myself. No big deal. Hey, got anything in development right now?
Just trying to figure out how to be a dad, to be honest. Because we got his first birthday coming up. That's been taking a lot of, not the rep party. He's been taking a lot of our time up. But right now, we're getting our feet back under us if they're not back under us already. So now it's time to figure out what's next in the burner, right? Where we want to go. I would love to do some kind of on-site, kind of like we were talking about, some on-site type of stuff, like a mobile on-site. But, people are starting to go back to work out here, but, how long they're going to last. I think the more reasonable option is to figure out what we're going to go try to figure out, like an online platform of some sort. I think that makes the most sense. But no, nothing really in the... With
being a dad, has that given you a different mindset as far as, we coaches that don't have kids, you get the 20-year-old trainer that's like, hey, make sure you take plenty of time out through the day for yourself, right? Like anybody doesn't have kids, anybody doesn't have a job.
The 20-year-old life coach.
Right? They're like, no, you make sure you set this aside. And you're like,
you need to have this 90-minute morning routine. And you're like, dude,
meditation. And,
get out of here.
Yeah, I think that's one of those things, right? Now you're a dad. You're like, holy shit. Now I understand not having time.
Make it count. Yeah, right? For sure. 100%. Right. So we were talking about time when we first opened the gym, and now it's just as busy, but a whole different aspect, right? It's trying to find time. Now, luckily, we're 2.5 years into the gym, so we don't have to check all those boxes like we did when we first opened it. But now it's time to find time to check all the boxes we need to when he's napping, or, and here, you watch him, I'm going to go do this, and so it's a lot of back and forth, especially right now during a pandemic, right? It's still a weird time. We're trying to socialize them without being stupid, for lack of a better term, about, the virus and everything. So it's a lot of like, all right, you go to work for 2 hours. There'll be a 30-minute gap where we'll come home. Here's the baby. Here's the keys. She'll go to work for 2 hours, right? And I'll watch the kids. So yeah, it's hard, man, because then you're like, okay, I got to fit my workout in, right? Luckily, I'm lucky enough that I train my classes the way I would train myself. Mm-hmm. So I jump in Monday, Wednesday, Friday with my 7 a.m. and then usually I get a Saturday lift as well. I've started going back to Jiu-Jitsu a little bit. That's Tuesday, Thursdays for me, sometimes Sundays. But again, it's just finding the time, right? I say Tuesday, Thursdays, but more times than not, it's just Tuesday, right? But I love it. It's great. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't change it. But now, more times than not, when I wake up, like you're talking about a morning routine, I wake up, I do my cars in about 4 minutes. I go, cool. I probably got a half hour to drink coffee and play some video games. You know what I mean? Like, this is it. This is all the video game time you get today, Justin. Make it count. Right? And then I don't beat the level. I'm all grumpy for the rest of the day. What's wrong? Nothing. And it's nothing. People, I'm not spitting anything new here, right? But you just got to make it count. Do you want to lift or do you want to play video games? Well, I want to play video games, but I need to lift, right? Or train. It doesn't have to be lifting. But you know what I mean? Time is a commodity for sure. I had a client one time telling me, like, everyone says time is money, but only about half the people actually believe it. They don't take themselves serious. They'll say time is money, but they're not taking their own time serious. And I'm like, that's a really good way to put it. And that was that entry. And that was the moment I kind of went, I got to get on this ball and open this gym like I've been saying for 4 years, 5 years. that was kind of the kicker for me right there.
The way we look at time, a lot of us are very hypocritical when it comes to how we apply time in one place, but then we don't apply it in the same way in other places.
Yeah.
It's in the context of that moment, because we're always interchanging those type of perspectives.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But I think when you do have young kids, you get way more efficient with everything.
You got it, right?
You don't have time and you're like, I want to fit this in. I need to fit this in. And you just do it. Like there's no.
I've really been working on being able to crack an egg with one hand. I always have hand. I'm like,
just crack it on his head.
Yeah, dude. Like Gordon Ramsay makes it look so easy.
Yeah, because when you don't have kids, you don't think of things like that. You're just all like, especially like you talk about lack of sleep, right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, and I think for coaches that don't have kids, it's hard to relate to.
Yeah, it's a real thing. Like lack of sleep, and it's a killer, man. People, like you were saying, how people can be hypocritical of their time. It's amazing to me how many people don't schedule sleep in, like enough sleep. You know what I mean? Like, dude, maybe it's because I have a kid now that I realize how precious it is. You know what I mean? Like, maybe that's why. When I was younger, you party till 3 a.m, get up for 6 a.m. clients. But now, like, when he naps, I nap. Whatever it is.
You're like Gollum. You're like, precious.
Like precious time. But yeah. So let me ask you guys something.
Okay.
So my dream was to be a pro wrestler. If you guys weren't trainers, what would your dream jobs be?
You go first, bro.
I mean, before I started training, I wanted to be a pro golfer.
Okay, I could do that. Yeah,
dude, I would just want to go. I would be like who Jimmy Chin is?
I don't know.
He's the guy that
is the videographer,
he's like an adventure photographer, and videographer. Yeah. That's what I would be.
There you go. All right.
You just kind of travel the world and go rock climbing, snowboarding, take pictures.
That'd be sick. That'd be a great gig.
I love watching him when he's doing his movies, especially when he gets the moment to talk in front of the camera. But it's amazing. Like you were watching him film Alex Honnold and all these other great climbers, but then you're forgetting he's doing the same shit.
Yeah,
like
you gotta be at a high level to keep up with those guys.
Yeah, like he's not just holding the camera; like he's on the wall with them doing the. So it's the work that he's got to put in.
I bet he can crack an egg with one hand.
Definitely.
Yeah, definitely. I would have loved to have been an announcer for sports.
Oh, you'd be a great announcer.
I could see that.
Yeah, I could, but I know I actually couldn't. But it was kind of funny. Like I don't know, I couldn't do that though.
He's too emotional,
dude. You know how quickly I'd get fired? I would have gotten fired so quickly. They'd be like, dude, they'd be like, you can't say shit and on the TV. I'd be like, dude, I'm watching a game, man. Like, it's gonna happen, bro.
The first time he has to call the Bears game, dude, he's gone. He's fired.
I'd be like, you sons of bitches. I'd be like, what the hell? They'd be like, okay, you're fired. They'd have to replace me right in the middle of the game. They'd be like, well, he's no longer with us. We brought in a backup here. Well, that's why I like
vendor that we found. It's a peanut vendor that we found. Because anybody will be better.
Well, because even if I wanted to be a ref, like people have asked me, oh, why didn't you get into refereeing in hockey? And I'm like, because I wouldn't be objective. I'd totally be biased. I mean, if I'm doing a Flyers game, I'd be like, that's the penalty. Why? Because you're wearing that jersey. Get in the box.
You're a Flyer.
You're wearing a Flyer. Get in the box. Get in the box. You're just a Flyer, so get in the box. It's just
get out of here. I'd want to be a baseball ump just so I could throw guys out of the game. Get out of here.
Yeah, so that's why I like Barstool Sports because it's. I mean, I think as fans, as we watch games, we get emotional, and I give so much credit to play-by-play and color commentators for being able to restrain themselves, even if they're considered homers. They're still doing a pretty good job. Restraining their emotions for the most part, because there's no way I could. I'd be like, that's some bullshit right there. Right. But at the same time, I would love to see us have a choice of being able to subscribe to a broadcast that is unfiltered. that is
That'd
uncensored.
be fun.
I'm really surprised to this day why there hasn't been one, because I think there's a huge market for that.
If one opens up after this podcast, you need some royalties, man.
Right. I mean, I've said it for years. Well, people got Sirius XM for that exact reason, right?
Yeah.
You know, they got it because they wanted to listen to Howard Stern unfiltered and uncensored, right? So that's the reason why the Sirius XM took off the way it did. So I think there's a huge market and a huge demand for that on the sports scene too, where give us an unfiltered, give us an uncensored broadcast.
You could probably just start one now. I mean, I don't see there's no barriers.
And just put it on YouTube and just start.
You just have to
that'd be weird.
You'd have to have the marketing power to broadcast it and say, hey, tune into whatever internet channel and listen to my, because you
wouldn't be able to broadcast the game.
Yeah, because you'd have to pay for all the rights. But I think a company like Barstool Sports that has the money I'm kind of surprised to this day why they haven't said, hey, let us do like an adult, and I mean, because you go to these games and dude, that's what you're hearing in the stands.
Yeah.
People are getting emotional. People want that. I think one of the biggest criticisms of Joe Buck was the fact that he was so monotone and so not emotionally involved in the game when he's announcing it, right? I mean, that was one of his biggest knocks.
But he hates the Niners.
but he just was just so blah, blah, blah. It's a touchdown. And you're like,
yeah.
And people were like, he doesn't even feel like he wants to be there. Like, where other announcers, you could feel that emotion, like they got excited, for both teams.
Romo's good at that, actually, for being Tony Romo. Like, he's funny, man. He gets excited, and it's fun. Yeah.
So I think if you had an avenue to be able to do that with, just for the general fan base that would be willing to subscribe to a channel like that, I think there's an untapped market there. Unfortunately, I don't have the capital to do that. But trust me, it'd be nice though.
Do it with independent pro wrestling. This is probably get their products for cheap, bro.
Well,
by the Big Show for like $50. Like, it's talking about taking your time. Time is money, right?
When you got the call to go down to the SAP Center to be in that event, I mean, it wasn't about the money, right?
No, exactly. Again, going back to time, right? Spending the time to be there and shake the right hands, meet the right people, hopefully, and get on their radar.
But even without being able to get those doors open for you, still, when you look back on it, I mean, Jesus, you did something that very few people are ever going to experience, right?
Oh yeah, there was a whole level of like, oh shit, this is cool. Like, don't get me wrong, like what we call in wrestling, it was a whole level of marking out, right? Like I was marking out on being there. I was stoked. I was pumped. Like I was like, holy shit, that's the Undertaker. And then he introduced himself as Mark. I'm like, oh dude, that was cool. You know what I mean? But you keep my demeanor like super cool. Nice to meet you too, sir. Yeah. Me and my buddy that I'm there with, like we're in the back, we're like, dude, that was fucking Undertaker, man. But it was cool, man. Yeah, there's definitely, there's a lot of variables there, right? It was one, because it's what I wanted to do, right? As hopefully as a profession. So it was trying to open avenues and doors. But two, it was fulfilling that childhood dream of being on the stage, right? Being on SmackDown, being on Raw, never made it to WrestleMania, but that was the main goal, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, there was definitely something to it for sure. From that night, I got chokeslammed by the Big Show, and there was a fan that would come to a lot of our independent shows, and he wanted to be a sports photographer. So he had all this really nice equipment. He took this killer photo of me midair. I'm about to get my ass kicked pretty much, right? I'm about to lose the match. But you best believe I blew it up to a poster size and framed that shit.
Hell yeah.
I remember that thing.
Hell yeah. Charlie Weingroff told me the one time, he's like, I like to do things that other people can't do. And I know he was talking about from a financial standpoint, right?
Okay.
But I think that statement for me, I was like, I get it. Like, and it's not just from a financial standpoint, but just from overall life standpoint, to be able to do things that nobody else is, or very few people have had opportunity or an experience of doing, right?
I 100% agree. It goes back to what we were saying. If you don't take a shot at it, you never will do something cool like that, right? You'll never, whatever it may be, right? You'll never do what other people can't do, or even a better way to put it, you'll never do what other people won't do, right? Not that they can't, right? It's that they won't. Like you said, they won't advocate the time to learning how to do said thing. On the opposite end, it's so frustrating when people pick something up so quick and you don't, right?
Oh, they just have that innate skill. Yeah.
Working at Jiu-Jitsu for like 3 years, and we got one of my buddies over here at the time. One of my buddies over here is the coach for us now. But yeah, dude, you should come take a class. Just instantly picked it up. Oh, you son of a bitch.
I won't go to your class then, yeah.
Right?
And I think what's interesting is after Charlie said that, I carry that over to training too, because it's kind of funny because we see people like Bud Jeffries and people doing unconventional things, and people are like, well, that's just stupid. Why would you do that? Because they can. Because they wanted to see if they could.
Yeah.
They said, is this something that's possible? And they went and did it.
Like I love like your new shtick on Instagram, or like these challenges, right? Like, what was the isometric hold today with the plate? Like, I feel like, yeah, I'm gonna try that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, hey, why? I don't know, because I want to see if I can do it. You know?
Right, yeah.
That's like Shaolin monk type training, right? There.
But what's interesting is like we have become so regimented that people just don't want to see. But as kids, we did that, right? As kids,
they don't want to play. I was just gonna say they don't want to play anymore, right? That's all. Like, I'm watching my kid here, like, and he just wants to explore and learn and move and And at some point, I get it. Going back to contact, life happens. Keeps us up. Contact injuries happen. But dude, I want to be able to play for as long as I can. I don't want to be 70 and have a case of stairs being my greatest nemesis. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Like you said, like, play around. Like, why do you do it? Because I can, man, and I want to do it while I can for as long as I can.
Yeah, I mean, and I know people say risk reward. Yeah, well, okay, you still weigh those. Yeah. I mean, it's not like we're doing stuff that's going to end up with us being hospitalized.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, for the most part, I can
do a backflip off this ladder. I'm good off that. You know what I mean?
Right? Yeah. There's just some things you're like, well, shit. Can I do this? Yeah. Here's a question. Is it possible? Is it something we can do? Well, screw it. Let's see if the risk isn't very high. Okay. Screw it. Let's see if we can get this done.
Obviously no one wants to be hurt or injured. So people are like, oh, I wouldn't do jiu-jitsu. It's too dangerous. Or how did you not get beat up during wrestling? Well, I did for sure. But I'd rather have aches and pains for doing something cool than just sitting too much or losing function. You know what I mean? Like, I earn these aches and pains. Right? And then I think also there's a certain amount of learning to respect your body that comes with the bumps and bruises. You know what I mean? Like,
I think one of my favorite lines actually comes from Shawshank Redemption with Stephen. When Stephen King wrote for when Red says, "Get busy living or get busy dying."
Yeah.
There's a lot of that. I love that. I think
that was 50 Cent though. Get rich or die trying.
No, well, 50 Cent. Nice try, brother.
Andy Dufresne was a friend.
But yeah, man,
apparently that's my Morgan Freeman impression. I'm sorry. That wasn't very good.
Note to self, don't have Justin imitate voices.
You hear my Irish and my Jamaican accent. They're exactly the same, bro. I cannot figure out how to make it different.
You're like the Sean Connery when Sean Connery, everything's in a Scottish accent.
Yeah.
The Scottish Russian guy on Hunt for October. You're like, oh, okay. All right. Sounds good. I still love the movie, but yeah, it kind of cracks me up. I mean, that's just the thing. It's to have fun with it, try, especially when it comes to training. If you've got chronic back issues, well, then no, you're not gonna do a lot of the stuff that you see us, dicking around with, right?
Yeah.
You're gonna be a little bit more cognizant.
Well, I also feel like when I can't do something, it's a motivator for me, right? Like, like you said, like we said, if you have chronic back issues or strong camps,
DJ,
DJ, I love that. Like, everything he posts, right? Because everything is about there's no back position, right? If you're prepared for it, right? And so like it was that handcuff thing. He's got the
with the torque stick,
crush behind. why can't I do that? Right. Now I want to know why. It's my shoulder. I mean, my shitty shoulder from wrestling. I'm like, well, let's fix it. So that's my, let's do it. There's limitations. And that's just a very basic example, right? But then there's limitations. My goal with training is figuring out why and then what I can do to get rid of them, I guess. At least try to diminish them or reduce them.
Yeah, like what you just said, you saw the behind the back compression. You were like, but you're working on trying to improve that as much as you can, right? I think too many people look at it and go, and then they just blow it off and they don't even try. And you're like, well, just because you can't do it doesn't mean you don't try not to do it.
You can't, exactly. Just because you can't do it now doesn't mean it's going to be forever, right? You can't be good at something without being shitty first. Right? Some people will prove me wrong on that. There are certain things, but overall, you can't be good without being shitty first.
I think, me personally, in my parallel work, I find as I get older, I'm trying to get better at planching on the parallettes as opposed to the opposite, going, okay, I'm getting older, I should decrease what I'm doing on the parallettes. I'm actually trying to go in the opposite direction and actually improve my skill on the parallettes and the planche. So that's been an awesome journey for me as far as being able to, get one leg fully extended out at a time. Now my goal is to be able to get both legs extended out together, right? So
you just need to stop working your legs out.
Is that what it is?
Yep. Real skinny, man.
You want to let the listeners know where they can find you on social media? And
it's at Kerley Fitness. So it's Kerley, like my last name. We're very original, I know. At Kerley Fitness. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. If you're out in the North Colorado area, in the Front Range, we're in Fort Collins, off of Swallowing College. Yeah, and we're there. We're a 24-hour facility. We got classes. Tell people, right, our goal, going on another tangent, right? Our whole goal here, I always say, like, a good doctor is a doctor that doesn't want to see you, right? A good trainer is a trainer that you hopefully want to keep coming back to, but you don't need to, right? So that's kind of our goal here, over here in Fort Collins, is I want to give everyone as many tools as they can to be able to build their own template safely for working out, right? To get into working out, feel comfortable with the barbell, feel comfortable with the kettlebell, feel comfortable exploring ranges of motion and weird things on the floor, like we were talking about, right? We don't do the Snapchats or the TikToks. I don't even know how to do those, but just those two social medias for right now. Yeah.
Oh, well, you got the new one. What's the new one? Shit, I forgot what it is.
Hive.
The Hive.
Yeah.
But I can't think of the Hive and not think of freaking comic books. Like, I'm just all like, the Hive.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh man. So yeah, because that's a new app. I haven't even looked at it. I sent you the email.
I downloaded the app and I set us up.
What is the Hive?
So
it sounds like a black market site or something. Like,
I don't know. I haven't looked into it yet. I signed up for an account just because, these things pop up and you got to have like TikTok. You got to have a TikTok.
I hope you download it and you were wrong and it's like a dating site and your wife is all mad at you.
No, I guess it's the newest social.
Testing it out for a buddy. Justin was trying to figure out how to use this.
He couldn't figure out the interface.
Yeah.
So it's the new, like the new social media for all these youngsters, all these hip youngsters. So it's like,
so that means it's going to be the next thing, basically.
The next big thing, huh? They say what the next big thing in social media is going to be is when your parents start using it, right? Because then, like that happened with Snapchat. Like originally it was just all the kids, and then all of a sudden, dude, like the older crowd got onto it, and bam, it took off, right? And now, but then it right, ebb and flows, right? It gets too popular, the kids don't want any part of it anymore.
Yeah, right.
Now comes the Hive, right?
Yeah, and then they move on to something else. Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Well, thank you everyone for listening.
24-hour one. We could just chat about all kind of. So after this one, guys, hang out. We're gonna talk about comic books and social media.
Well, okay. Well, okay. Let's. But how many of our peers love comic books?
There's a lot of them out there.
There's a lot of them, man.
Yeah. At least 80%. It's a cool time. Remember when
you think it's 80%? You think it's that high?
Yeah, I think it's pretty high.
It's pretty out of trainers.
I don't know about like reading comic books, but
we're like into
superhero stuff.
like, isn't that like some of the motivation of why we all became started lifting weights, right?
Yeah.
See, but the problem is that superheroes don't train.
Those sons of bitches,
we just had that conversation.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we know.
But what if they did?
Right? Throughout the history of mankind, man is always thought of gods and demigods, and superheroes are basically just our updated version of the Greek and Norse mythology type stuff, right? And I think that's, I mean,
well, even
I got into coach
mythology, right? Like Superman, how many times has been referred to as Jesus, right? Like,
right, yeah,
with the resurrection, and I each their own, their beliefs, but like even in the Zack Snyder films, the most recent ones, right, it's still the same.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, in the fitness industry, I think the vast majority of us are at some level, into the whole comic book and superhero type of mythologies.
Yeah, because
we kind of, I mean, at least for me, that was a big motivation for starting to lift weights was seeing, growing up reading that stuff. Yeah. I wanted to be Batman. You're like,
for me, it was the same. It was comic books and pro wrestling, right? Like,
yeah.
Oh, damn, as Ultimate Warrior, I want to be like him, not notice, like how out of shape the dude really was. He'd run to the ring and be out. Yeah. But yeah, dude, comic books, exactly. You wanted to be Batman. You wanted to be the badass, right?
Yeah,
the badass
for sure.
With the heart of gold.
Yeah, pretty much. I always liked Dr. Doom myself.
Oh, you were a villain, bro.
I loved most of my favorite characters are Dr. Doom, Magneto, Deadpool is fantastic. People that just kind of like are kind of on the other side type thing.
My mom always worried about my brother because he always cheered for the Cobra and the Decepticons. Like Transformers and G.I. Joes. He never cheered for the good guys.
Your mom's like, where did I go wrong?
Why did you always cheer for the villains?
They got to have fans too, man. Everybody's got to have a support system. You can't be leaving them out. Let's be honest. Where does Cobra get their henchmen? Do you put ads out on LinkedIn for that shit?
Craigslist? Yeah, I don't know.
Like looking for a job, looking for a new adventure, want to kill,
any organization, right? Any terrorist organization,
right? Do you want to work for an organization whose goal is to dominate the world? I mean, taking applications.
When you put it that way, right? Sounds kind of cool.
Well, I'm just saying, like, how else do you put that shit out there, right? I mean, it's kind of one of those things, right? Yeah, and so for all you listeners out there, this is the shit we used to talk about. Like, this is what we talk about when we get together. A lot of
road trips talking about.
A lot of road trips talking about crazy shit. So, thank you all for joining us, and until next episode, be good to each other.